Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's January 10th. It's cold outside. We have a wintry mix coming. And what I'm going to talk about today is building hoops for your row cover. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to use this brace wire. This comes from Tractor Supply. I don't know if you have a farm supply area in your or company in your area. This is 9 gauge. This is the same thing that your hoops that you buy come out of. This row here is 171 feet long. It's under 20 bucks. Now, whenever I build my hoops, my row cover is 7 foot. So my area that I can cover and put some in the ground and be able to fasten my row cover down is going to be a maximum of 6 foot. And the reason why I'm telling you that, I make my hoops 7 foot long, and then depending on how soft the ground is to how deep they'll go, but some areas you might get 6 inches, some you might get a little bit further. I have 2 row widths. One is 36 inch or 3 foot, and then one is 4 foot. As you can see, this will cover both rows. It'll cover 4 foot, but it won't cover tall plants, such as if you have broccoli that's out now, such as that. Now, what I'm going to be covering today are my onions, which onions will take the cool weather, and I also have some collards, which they'll take the cool weather, but it'll damage with this colder weather and stuff. You're going to get some damage on the leaves. And for my onions, I have some green onions, or what I call my table onions. And you know that if you buy table onions, you want a nice green crisp leaf. You don't want, I don't like to cut the tops off like a lot of people that bring them to market, because the tips are brown from being frozen. So what I'm going to do is cover them. In turn too, what this will do is it'll provide a little bit more heat during the daytime, so it'll get them to grow faster. But let's get started on making hoops. What we've done is we have one cut the right size. And this is an easy process once you do that. It's easier with 2 people. We just take and bring this around. We use a small pair of bolt cutters. That works best for it. And then just cut them off. Now, I recommend when you cut them off to make sure whoever's helping you that they keep the one that was the original one that you was marking with, because what happens is if you don't, your length is going to start varying over time. This way, they're all the same length. Also, I want to say that whenever you do this works best if you put these in the ground 4 foot apart. Now, we have put them further. They tend to flap more whenever it's a windy day and they want to try to come loose, and they don't support as high on the tends to drop your row cover. And if that happens, you don't have that distance to keep frost and stuff or freezing cold weather from damaging your plant. So you want to make sure when you do this, you put them about 4 foot apart. Now, I'm working on another project. I haven't quite got through to it. A lot of people build what they call hoop houses. They use a wider row cover and they set their beds up different. And they use 1/2 inch conduit for that. Now, I'm going to start, because the end of my rows don't stay as solid as I'd like them. So what I'm going to start doing is making hoops for the end of my rows that are made out of 1/2 inch conduit. And I'll show that process, and that's really going to be a game changer as far as for row protection. But anyway, we'll get finished up with this. Okay, I have a couple of rows cut up. Now, each one of these rows makes about 24 hoops, so that gives me 48. And you can do the math as far as however long your rows are. If they're 40 foot long, then it takes 10 to make the length plus the one that you start with, so that's 11 to do a 40-foot row. Mine are 50 or some are longer. So anyway, we'll get these out to the garden. I know it's cold out there, but we need to get this done. When I talk about the spacing on the hoops, as you can see, some of these right here, these two are roughly about 8 foot apart, and you can see how much sag you get, and especially if you have a crop that is taller. Some of these under here are actually right here, the fabric is resting on the crop. So you want to have them spaced where they're more uniformly 4 foot apart, so it keeps it up high. Even though some of these plants over here, cauliflower and broccoli, are tall, it just barely damages the leaves, which these are crops we don't normally harvest the leaves on, but we don't want them the frost to touch the flower heads as they're producing. Okay, we have our hoops placed every 4 foot all the way down, and what we're going to do now is lay out our row cover. Now this row cover I'm using is I believe it's some type of poly mesh. Like I say, the rows are 7 foot wide. Now preferably I like to buy rows that are 500 foot or even 1,000 foot, but I don't know if maybe possibly manufacturing due to COVID, or maybe this is import from China or something. But anyway, the only way I could get this is 100-foot rows, which creates a problem on rows like this where it's just a little bit longer, but I'll just have to deal with that. But now we're going to lay this out. Rolling this out is kind of a simple task. It's just, I normally stick it on the end of a rake and then just hold it at one end and unroll it the length of the row that I need. Okay, we're going to, we've got this rolled out, we're going to fasten this at the end. Now, what we do is we clip the end of it, keep enough so you can get good ground contact so you put it down. But what we'll do is we'll pull this out, and we use these landscape staples, they work real good, and we'll fold this edge over. Now as long as this is put down snug, and you can just push these through the fabric, and then we put them at a 45-degree angle so that they're holding against there, and that'll, as long as you keep this taut, these will hold fine. If you let it where it's going to whip, it's going to eventually pull it out. But what we'll do is we'll bring this end in, they kind of roll it around to where it's not going to have a bunch of extra and where it's down tight, and then we can just kind of stick a staple through and hold it, and we'll do it kind of like the direction that we want it to hold. So we want it to hold going from there, so we'll put it down at a 45 this way, and we'll do the same to that end so we've got it straight. Now what we're going to do is we'll work down one side of this, getting it all tight, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side. Okay, we've got this covered. I find that it works best if I stretch this. Whenever I stretch this out, like I say, you want it to be tight. You're not really pulling it tight, you're just taking the slack out. But when it is angled at the side, instead of just coming straight down to the hoop that's there, because what that does is deflects the air to where it doesn't put pressure right on it, and it lets it lay there a little bit better. But you can see on this one next to it, this is where I have my beets, and now they're growing pretty good. They're actually, a lot of them's touching. Hopefully we're supposed to get snow today, which is kind of uncommon, but they say 2 to 4 inches, and it will put weight on this, and it will create a little bit of problem if we don't come back and add extra hoops and get this side here set up right. So that'll probably be another project while we're covering these overwintered red onions. They'll survive the cold, but I'll go ahead and cover them, and the reason for that is the onion will stay, it'll stay a little warmer, it won't get frost damage to it, and so it won't have to recover and start back. But they're looking pretty good, and the extra protection will do them well. I was talking about building a different end hoop for these, because the wire hoops, they're really light, and this lets it get some slack in it. So once I do that how-to on the heavier end hoops, I'll post a video for it. The red onions are covered, and since we're out here, we'll kind of look, see, we're working on completing the last of the beds in this section of the garden. So won't be long, we'll have all our beds built. I won't be covering this row of cabbage and cauliflower that's in here. There might be some broccoli. I'm leaving this for a test. It's had a lot harder time dealing with the cold. It's actually frost burnt a bunch of the leaves, but I want to test and see how much of effect it has on it in the overall compared to the other crops. So we'll leave this one open to the extreme weather. When I talk about onions being frost damaged, and you can see these onions and these leaves were, whenever they got damaged earlier, they can recover and they're nice and green, the rest of them, but each time that gets a hard freeze like that, it starts killing the taller leaves. So what you want to do is, or my intent is to protect these from that, so they don't damage them, and they won't be having to recover, not having as many leaves for photosynthesis. Well, as you can see, the weatherman was right. We definitely getting some snow, but I hope this video was helpful to you. If you use some type of protection for your plants, let me know in the comments, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those too. If you'd like to see more of these, just subscribe, hit that bell button. If you like it, go ahead and hit that like. It helps my channel. Happy gardening.